Hello and welcome back to another episode of You and I for the Kenai. We're here today at Serenity House with another great recovery story. We got Lloyd with us today. As always, I'm with Eric and Coburn. Lloyd, it's nice to have you here today.
It's nice to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome, man. Well, if you could just kind of get us started with where you're from,
All right.
a little background information.
Absolutely. So it's important to know where came from and where I'm at right now and see that difference. I started using drugs and alcohol when I was about 10 years old. Parents were divorced, moved all over the place with my mom, different school every year. It was kind of tough. So I ended up with forming this habit. And
pretty chaotic.
Super chaotic, man. I was a new kid everywhere and trying to fit in. And
Where was this around?
so we
All
moved.
in one state, generally?
Okay, so we went to Oregon,
Yeah.
down on the coast, Lincoln City. I lived there, when we first moved out of Alaska. And then we moved to Portland, and then we moved to Castle Rock, Washington, and then we moved to Lewiston, Idaho, Clarkston, Washington. And the whole time my dad was living up here, and I wanted to live up here.
Mm-hmm.
I was born and raised in Kodiak. Those were my friends, were my people that I knew and was comfortable with. So my mom wouldn't really allow that. She was an
Probably
alcoholic.
part of your culture, too. I mean, people who
Yeah,
spoke like you, dressed like you, like to do the things you like to do. It was home.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was home. It was comfortable.
Yeah.
When I lived there, I felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture that I grew up in, we're fishermen.
Yeah.
So we
It's
fished.
very distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I was joking that Aaron was from Montana and couldn't drive in the snow. But I'm also
I'll drive perfectly fine in the snow.
I'm also from Montana, and when I moved up here, my buddy was kind of like, "Hey, you want to fish in Bristol Bay?" So I went and fished for a summer, and that was like, it was very like, oh my, this is very much its own little world, man.
Yeah.
It is its own culture. It is its whole own thing. So when you say like, I born and raised up to a certain point in Kodiak, like moving out of a heavy commercial fishery driven area, I think would be really hard to adjust to.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Yeah, indeed.
More than others, or more than a lot, I would say.
Well, what it was mostly like was, it was uncomfortable because down there it's all about like image, and I didn't fit that.
Mm-hmm.
Where I grew up in Kodiak fishing, it's more realism.
Mm-hmm.
So the background I came from, and this is just being a little kid, and I'm still realizing this,
Mm-hmm.
but it was, extra tough boots,
Yeah.
sweatshirts, sweats, rain gear.
Yeah.
It was that.
Yeah.
And go down there, and they have flip-flops and surfer shorts, and their hair's all did up, and it was all about image, and I didn't really fit that image.
Right.
And it wasn't that we were poor. My dad took very good care of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't really want for too much, but
But how you saw life was
yeah.
completely different.
I didn't know what to want down there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was completely confused. So,
Mm-hmm.
and my mom was drinking all the time, and I would go to this fridge and sneak a beer here and there, and it was just a way to cope with all that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, being a new kid, I was super scrawny, got picked on a lot, got bullied a lot, and when I stood up for myself, I ended up getting expelled from school.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to deal with that. Man, I really had no self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Starting at like, 10 years old, all the way through, I really had no self-worth. So I started to come back up here and go fishing with my dad when I was about 12 years old.
Okay. In the summers.
In the summers, because we fish and cook inlet. We still have a permit in a boat to this day.
Okay.
So, and my dad's had it for 50 some years. So I started coming up here, fishing with my dad, and then we'd go over to Kodiak on our boat and fish herring and longline halibut. And I ended up getting a job on another boat outside the family. And that's when I was like, wow, man, I'm really doing something. I'm doing something on my own. You know, I was like 14 at that point. So I moved out of the house and moved onto a boat when I was like 14. And I had family in Kodiak still, so when we were in port, I would go and I would hang out with them. This whole time that I'm doing this, our credo was work hard, play hard.
We've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm, I really took that to heart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that, I thought that I had earned the right to party, man. And I loved it.
And the culture really, in a lot of ways, in the
Promoted
work
it.
hard, play hard, that's what it says.
Super
That's
promoted.
what it says, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you were working on the fishing boats at 14, they're probably like, you're basically a man and you can do whatever you want as long as you keep up, kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in the sense, I think this is, like I said, I like to get off topic a little bit because I've thought about this too. I fished with some people, and one person had said something along the lines like, at a young age she was fishing, and it was not like, oh, we're gonna work hard and you're pretty much an adult. Here's a little weed to smoke. It was like, here's an 8-ball of blow, and like it was pretty all out. And I think one of the things that's interesting about that is I think when you're on the water, like the laws matter, right? I mean, the society's laws matter, but really when you're out on the ocean, nature's laws matter. And I think that perpetual kind of mindset of like, we are like fighting against nature's laws, I think those in some ways, especially maybe on an island, I've never been to Kodiak, but on an island, that you see in the culture too, like we are human beings and like we really battle with nature and nature's laws,
Yeah.
I mean, they still have court system, it's still society, it's not like I'm not saying it's like some cave age or anything, but I think
Lord of the Flies.
when you live in a way that you have to battle nature to survive, and you do that in a constant way that truly does threaten your survival, and that's how you make your money, I don't think that you just go from like battling nature's laws to then like existing in a cute cubicle of society's laws. I think like that culture integrates itself to where you're 15 years old, you're working hard, you're surviving, you are with and all of a sudden the next thing you know, like you're doing some things that like you said, if you'd really take that to heart, you can get into some situations, seems
Absolutely.
like.
And you think
said
about
it.
when you're a kid, growing up in that like cubicle corner of society, or whatever. When you think back, like when I think back, like like when I think about why I couldn't drink at 10 years old, it's like, oh, this is an adult beverage for adults, you know what I mean? And adults have different responsibilities. Like what makes an adult is they have a job, they go to work every day, they provide things, they make money, whatever, they have these other
Yeah,
responsibilities.
you just went to school and complained about your homework.
Pretty much, yeah. But when you're 15 and you don't have any different responsibilities from their adult, there is literally nothing that separates you from
Yeah.
them at this point.
When you deckhand next to a 30-year-old,
Yeah, you're practically
I mean,
more
you're
or
doing
less
the same
30.
things.
Yeah.
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 You feel 30
Interesting.
at least,
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes 50 or 60.
Right.
It's hard, son.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and there's no reason really not to. They're your peers at that point.
Yeah.
There's nothing that separates you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said it a couple times, survival.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, growing up in that culture with those people doing those things, it's basically, yeah, you're right, survival mode. So it's, I never really thought about consequences,
Mm-hmm.
right? The higher mind thinks about consequences, and the reptilian mind is survival, and that's pretty much where I dwelled.
Mm-hmm.
Being that young and being around those people, I felt comfortable, I felt safe, that was my normal, and these guys were partying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Super partying.
Yeah.
We had lots of fun, and there was, like I said, there was no consequences. And you're right, we didn't think about the rules of society, because hey, we go out and we survive this every day. I mean, it's some dangerous. You just can't pull over if you break down and get help go to a gas station or a garage. You're on your own. So it gives us a feeling of like we deserve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're entitled to act that way. However, excuse me. However, because of that, using the drugs and the alcohol, partying, thinking it's fun. Oh, hey, I do it because I like to do it. Really, it's just a super cop out. That's all BS. That's just a way of saying I don't want to look at my problems. I don't want to look at why I drink, why I do drugs. And here's a conversation ender. I do it because I like it. Bullshit. So, but it took me a long time to figure that out.
Sure.
I'm talking like 34 years of partying.
Yeah.
30 years of working, 20 years of working out in the Bering Sea. I was married, kids. I have 2 girls and 3 boys. I started very young. I'm in contact with all of them. My daughter lives with me. It's great. I got a son here, and I got a son out west fishing right now on a crab boat.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and my other son lives in Arizona. My daughter Taylor lives down in Washington. So, they all did really well, really well. My youngest daughter Sierra is getting ready to go into the Navy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and that's my baby. I was there when she was born.
Yeah.
All the others I weren't. I was out fishing. So, I'm really proud of that. But to get back from like where I started, I did not think that I had any sort of problem because it was normal. It was what we did.
Totally.
I was doing really well, as far as money goes. I got married because that was the right thing to do, and she was just a wonderful person, and we got pregnant. My daughter was born.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 26.
Okay.
26 when I got married. And so my daughter was born. We had a house, had a nice little boat in the driveway, a new truck, lots of friends.
You're still fishing. You're still making
fishing,
money.
yeah.
I mean, life, as far as all the cultural boxes go,
Check.
check. You are
Yeah.
sitting pretty.
Yeah.
So did you regulate yourself pretty well? Because it seems like you're saying like that many years of partying, you would assume something would break after a while. But you must have. Was it pretty regular that you guys were like, we can't go crazy every night? I guess because you got work later on, or
Right.
or what kind of regulate that?
Well, so my wife did.
Sure.
So it was this thing. So I took that mentality of working on the boat. I took that home with me, and my wife, she wasn't that way. She would be like a sociable weekend drinker, have a couple drinks, get all silly, start dancing around, and then put it up and go home, right? Wake up with a headache, and that was it. I took my mentality home, and I was mowing the yard, smoking weed in the garage, going in the house, cooking dinner with her, and drinking beer, and maybe some shots of whiskey. And then it turned into buddies would come over, and we'd go out in the garage, and we'd do a line of coke. So I was like 27 before, or 20, about 27 before I messed with coke. But that's what
That's a slippery slope there.
that fired off my downfall.
Really.
I guess it was all the guilt and the shame that I felt like when I did it.
Really.
I took that in, and I carried that in the house with me, and I carried that in my conversations and my
Where was that coming
relationships.
from?
The guilt. Well,
Yeah.
so I knew better.
Okay.
Right. So I have a thing about integrity. I didn't know a definition then. I got a really cool definition now. And I got it out of the book. So my morals and values and my beliefs, my spiritual beliefs, all integrated, right? That's the connection between the heart and the mind, between the spirit and the self.
Mm.
So the gut feeling that I get is a warning saying, hey, this is what you need to do, man. And I
Or
wasn't.
what you're about to
or
do
what you're-
isn't going
right.
to integrate well with your
Yeah.
current values, spirituality,
Right.
etc.
So
Yeah.
you kind of knew it wasn't you. You're like, I don't want to be this person.
Right.
But then you do it anyways, and then you'd look back and be like, who am I? Or, you know, I say I'm this person, and then I do this. So I can understand that.
Yeah.
Did your friends and family, were they, do you think, going to produce guilt or shame, or was this pretty internal?
This was internal. My friends and my family were proud of me for what I was doing on the outside, but nobody was inside with me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm that had a lot to do with my spoiled relationship with my wife. She's a great person. You know, we still talk to this day. We're good friends, but nobody knew what was going on the inside, and I did not know how to express it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to express it, so I suppressed it, and I covered it up, and I got out of my mind every day. I smoked weed almost every day from the time I was 10 years old, like when I first caught my sisters doing it, and they made me do it so I wouldn't tell on them.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my!
He
wow.
did it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, at gunpoint.
So,
Yeah.
so I knew I learned how to cope with my problems at a young age, man. Getting kicked out of school, getting in fights, getting picked on, moving from place to place, being the new guy, always feeling weird and trying to fit in, trying to meet people, unable to express myself. Dealing with my mom and her friends and drinking and partying, and she let me drink with her and her friends when I was like 12, 13 years old, man. So I learned how to get out of myself, right? I learned how to just blank everything out, and that numb became comfortable. So any problem that I had, that's how I dealt with it. So those problems just kept stacking up and stacking up and stacking up. Led to, me cheating on my wife, me getting a divorce, and then like her moving away, and that guilt and pain from what I had done. At one point, no amount of drugs or alcohol could fix that.
Really?
And all I wanted to do was die. And I tried. Right? I had an attempt. And I tried. My daughter, my daughters, they moved out of state with their mom. I couldn't see them. It was brutal. It was brutal, but no amount of drugs could fix that. It was a tough time, man. That was in all through the 2000s, pretty much. The later 2000s, from like 5 on up.
So about how old were you?
Let's see, I was 26, 28 when we split up, 29. In my early 30s, like, right, so that should be like the funnest time of my life, man. And I was still doing it. I was still fishing. I was still like on the outside doing these things, but on the inside I was destroyed, man. My house was dirty. It was cluttered. It was unbearable to live in, and I just did not want to live in it anymore. And I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't know how to ask for help.
Were you thinking at this point, a lot of my problems are due to my excessive drug and or alcohol abuse? I should try to curb this? Or what are your thoughts around your drug and alcohol use?
Absolutely not.
Really?
My drugs and alcohol were certainly not the problem, and because I didn't have a problem.
Really?
Absolutely not.
So you had shame around your use.
I had shame around my behavior.
Oh, okay.
Not
okay.
my use.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you did not see your behavior as a product of use.
No, I didn't make the connection, man.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess I could be a slow learner.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the name of the game in some ways at times.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So, moving on from that, commercial fishing all my life and just completely unstable, and no amount of money could make that stable. No amount of money, and I made some really, really good money, and I've started over more times than I can count, man. I've lost everything, and it's just like, it's whatever. And I just basically took things for granted. Didn't think about the consequences. I would think about tomorrow, and I would shut down. They say live in the moment, live today. Well, that's very true. However, there has to be a goal. There has to be some sort of future. I could not see that future. I could not see past right now. And often I spent most of my time looking back and feeling that guilt and shame for everything that had happened, like all the people I hurt, man, those relationships. I have good relationships now. People love me now. They loved me then, but I couldn't see it, and I took it for granted. So,
and you probably didn't do a whole lot of loving back.
It was
and today,
superficial.
that occurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Man, I love my life. I love my people. It's a beautiful thing. So many miracles happen to me every day. I mean, I've literally lost count. At one point, I was counting them. I can't count them anymore. I don't even know where to begin. There's triple digits. Like every day, something really cool happens. And it's a manifestation of positive energy and positive thought. I really, I'm happy today. I have all this awareness. It was a gift given to me. The Serenity House saved my life. Absolutely. The people here were just amazing, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't even care why.
Right.
I'm not going to try to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I just appreciate it. So.
You have this awareness today.
Mm-hmm.
Where we were just discussing, you were pretty unaware that you had a problem. When do we get to you start? When do you start being like, okay, maybe my problems are mostly stemming from my excessive drug and or alcohol abuse?
Well, it's when these guys here at the house pounded it into me.
Really?
Yeah, 2000. Yeah, that was 2013. So, leading up to my check-in, right, for residential, in 2013, it was September 28th. 2013 is when I checked in. So, I was fishing out west, and I was fishing cod and crab and salmon. Well, my real mother lived down in Washington, Oregon, and I got a call from my dad saying, "Hey, your mom's not doing all that well. You need to get down there." So,
Because of mostly drinking?
well, she had a long life of drinking and taking pills and whatnot, but she had quit everything about 10, 15 years prior to her death.
Yeah.
So I get a call, and my dad doesn't ever. He's John Wayne, right? But he's like, you really need to get down there, and that was real. So I bounced down and went to the hospital down there. She was in North Powder, and she was on her. We're getting ready to take her to my sister's house for hospice. So. So she was pretty much out of it. I have tons of family down there. I'm the youngest of 9, by the way. There's tons of nieces and nephews and cousins and aunts and uncles. Just the whole hospital was flooded with my family. And she didn't know any of them. She didn't know any of them. I seen her. I walked in. I was like, "Hey, Mom." And her eyes open. She looked at me. She said, "Hi, son." Yeah. That was pretty powerful. Very powerful. We had some good conversations, and it was nice. because I hadn't seen her for a couple of years. I was up here fishing. I was pretty resentful for everything, and so I avoided her. But we had a couple of really good talks, and then she passed away. So 2 weeks after that, I came back up here and jumped on the boat. And that's another thing, too, being a workaholic, to try to get rid of the reality that we, our responsibilities as far as to our children and our families and stuff. Yes, work is good, and it's part of the responsibility is to provide. But at some point, when, I can't be there physically, then that's an issue. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So because I couldn't be there physically, for the rest of my family, and I still haven't even buried her yet. I was like 8 years ago or whatever.
It's interesting you say that, because I think work holds an interesting place in, especially I think in America.
Yeah.
We do obviously, we all to some extent really do need to work, right? We have to provide for our basic needs, in the most literal sense. However, once you've provided, like let's say you're working to provide for yourself and your family, once you've reached a certain point, anything after that really is, selfish in the most basic sense. It's to serve your own desires and your own goals. And I think obviously there's times that it's mixed with some, areas of selflessness and that you want to provide a little bit more. But when your family is saying like we have enough, and it is pretty clear, from all these basic markers of food and transportation, etc., that you've provided enough, and you continue to just like dedicate your entire being to work. I think that the discussion of like, is this work like becoming remarkably selfish? Well, that's a discussion that probably needs to happen, But I think that's
It's
weird
a very
discussion to
difficult
have here.
conversation. I agree with that because work is a very you're gonna get a thumbs up kind of cop out almost. You know what I mean?
Gotta work.
Hey, going to work.
Yeah.
I gotta provide. And it's a very easy, more or less. It's a very good reason not to be somewhere.
When was the last
you know?
time someone's like, what have you been up to? Oh, dude, I've been working so much. And someone was like, ugh,
That sucks.
jerk.
Yeah.
You selfish?
Yeah.
Selfish jerk, You don't hear that.
You never take me out for coffee. You're always working.
Yeah, right?
Hey, you make too much money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it seems backwards to me. And it is like.
Not natural.
It is, and and I catch a lot of flack for that sometimes. But it's one of those things where time is more or less your currency.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're gonna spending that time with your family is honestly gonna be way more valuable than it is spending all your time on that boat. Because like you said, you've had and you've lost and you've had and you've lost. But the most you've ever really had is probably that time with your family, with your mom. Those last moments are probably the most valuable assets that you've ever really acquired in your life. Am I wrong there?
No, bro, you nailed it, man. That's 100%. But those are the things that I simply wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think America, not blaming America, but I'm saying I think where work holds in this culture, you better be thinking pretty dang hard to ever really try to, because I think that idea just opposes so much of what our culture says. Work is, like, you listen to any kind of news thing, it's like, America is back to work. And obviously unemployment sucks. We don't want to be unemployed, but it's like
It's
the
balanced.
person
It's always
working
balanced.
60 to 80 hours is going to receive bigger thumbs up than the person working 25 hours a week in America, We're
Definitely.
really, I'm off topic again, but here, this is a funny thing. I read this
Did
on
you take a class
I-
about
no,
this?
no, I read this in a Jimmy John's, which is like a sandwich place.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like down in Lower 48 especially.
Yeah, freaky fresh, by the way.
I
All right.
think it was
Badass.
at a Jimmy John's, and it said something along the lines of, and really, dude, maybe I read this in like some chain email, I don't know, but it was like this guy in Cuba or something, and he's like, he gets up, he goes fishing, catches one fish, goes home, takes a nap, then kind of does it again, and somebody comes up to him and says, you know, if you worked all day, you know, you caught, you know, 4 fish a day, and then you saved up and you bought like 3 more boats, then and you could be in the place where you could pretty much you could live a totally different life, you know. And he's like, well, what would I do? And he goes, well, man, I imagine you could probably get up, you could, you know, like go fishing for a little bit, you know, catch a fish, come back, take a nap. And he's like,
That's what I do.
that's what I'm doing, you know, you know. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, that was an interesting little Jimmy John's poster.
People are so helpful.
yeah.
It's kind of like the opposite of crazy is still crazy. I mean,
Right.
you could spend all your time with your family, never go to work, never provide, and there you go. You have the opposite problem where somebody has to work. So it's a lot of it's about balance, but that's one of the hardest things is finding balance.
Unique balance, absolutely. Yeah, which is impossible when I'm loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. You know, see all these things that make sense to me now. You know, I've been in recovery since 2013, October 1st. I've been in recovery. I've been around it. I've been getting information. You know, I had a relapse a little over a year ago on Suboxone, the wonder drug that is supposed to be helping so many people over their addiction, but it's just, in my opinion, it's created a new addiction and all the things that come along with it. However, I'm not a professional, and that's just my opinion, but I choose to be abstinent. So, getting back to the topic, I was down there. My mom passed away, and I came back up here almost like immediately within a couple weeks to deal with it. And I called my skipper, and he's like, "Well, man, you need some more time." And no, I really need to get back up here. So I came up, and you know, we fished. I had a super good job, and the people that I worked with were great. It was a nice family thing, but it's kind of weird to me because they were normal, right? Or normal quotations.
Right.
So I came up and started working, and you know, I had a good job, a good time with the people I was with, and made tons and tons of money. That run was so good, tons of money. Almost made $100,000 in 3 months, and that's cash money. I'm talking cash money, stacks of $100 bills. Well, I decided that I was going to, because I deserved it, that at the end of the season that I was going to, you know, go up and have a few drinks and party. And I never partied when I was working on the boat.
Really?
When I was on the boat, I didn't party. I smoked pot,
Sure.
right? I didn't drink. I didn't do any kind of hard drugs whatsoever because, you know.
You got to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
So I figured, well, hey, man, I deserve it. I just kicked ass fishing. Working 20 hours a day for 3 months straight, and I deserve this. So I tried, I had a couple drinks, had some food, visited with everyone, and we were flying out, or not flying out, we were getting ready to take the boat to Kodiak, and I was going home, back down. I was staying down in Portland. I was going back down to Portland. I had all this money, and I sent money to my family. I sent out tons of money to my family. So I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling very, very righteous. Well, there was an incident when I was out fishing. I had a vehicle there, and got broken into, and some important things got taken from me. Some like personal things that were, of sentimental value, and and really the price value, the monetary value was nothing. However, I had a great idea that I was going to go get my stuff back, and I was going to handle it, because that was the way it is. Hey, this is the Wild West. So, man, I proceeded to get into a situation that I deeply regret, that I ended up going to prison for. That was a pretty tough next day. Excuse me. Woke up, went to work as usual. Didn't really think anything was wrong. I had a confrontation with this guy the night before. And, well, the troopers got involved. So we're sitting there working, and here comes up some troopers and pull us in to question us about it, and end up getting arrested, having to go to jail. I've never had, I got some driving stuff, right? But nothing like this. So, but I know what to do because I seen it on TV, and my mother instilled it from birth. You never tell. You never talk.
Shut up and get a lawyer.
Shut up and get a lawyer.
Yeah.
So I lawyered up, and because I lawyered up, they told me, the troopers told me, well, I know this is a lot of bullshit because we heard it, we interviewed the other guy, and it just sounds stupid. So we need you to tell us what happened, and we need you to talk. And if you don't, we're going to throw some pretty serious charges on you. And I just looked at him, I said, well, I would like a lawyer. I've got nothing to say. And next thing you know, these guys hit me with a kidnapping charge and like 6 other charges. And I was like, all right, well, that's not, I didn't kidnap anybody. That's not going to stick, So I bailed out. The judge gave me a bail and third party to my parents' house here in Kenai. And so I bailed out. I was in for like 15, 16 days. And I go home, and now I'm on bail, and I could look on court view. The charges, they ended up dropping all the charges, right? So I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then they re-indicted me on them. I'm like, oh shit. And I get a public defender like out in Dillingham, and trying to call. I can never get a hold of him. And, well, you know what? I'm just gonna get a lawyer. So I called a lawyer locally here. I ended up talking to him. He's like, hey man, don't trip. I got you. So I started talking with this lawyer and explained everything to him. And I was honest with him as much as I could, and everything that was relevant. I was feeling pretty good. I was like, man, this stuff isn't gonna stick. So we started proceeding from there. Well, this process lasted 2.5 years. Okay. So the 2.5 years of getting bailed out and then going to court, that was the most miserable time of my life because I was anticipating that other shoe to drop. At any moment, I was going to prison. And I don't care if it was 10 days or whatever. I was scared to death. I didn't want to go to jail for 1 day. I was scared to death. I had anxiety attacks where it felt like I was chained to a brick on the bottom of the ocean is what it felt like. That's the best way to describe it. I had those happening every day. I had a safe place to stay. I had, as much freedom as my dad would allow because I was on third party. However, that changed after a year. They let me just out on bail. They disconnected the third party because I was a good boy and I had to work. So, but I started to drink quite a bit. I started to drink quite a bit. I still had a bunch of money left. And, started partying. Well, that anxiety was pretty bad. Oh, here, man, try these. What are these? Oh, those are Xanny bars. Oh, yeah? What do they do? Well, just try one. Bam, boom. Okay, I love that. Oh, yeah, let's have Bloody Mary on top of that. Yeah. 3 days later, wake up naked in my bed looking like Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Being like
Very much so.
Yeah. So, took the anxiety away, bro, I tell you. Yeah, man.
In your existence for the next week.
Yeah, take a lot of days away.
You go over to my buddy's house like 2 weeks later and my shoes are there. Like, how did those get here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I found booze, man. I found booze to be my friend, And honestly, I hate the taste of alcohol. I hate the taste of alcohol. I went as far as to have my gallbladder removed, because my gallbladder doesn't like booze either. So I had it removed. And then I cured the hangover. Crazy, huh? The lengths we'd go to. So yeah, man, I didn't realize I had a problem at all. And, you know, dealing with my problem with alcohol and drugs. No,
Right.
I had lots of problems.
Right.
Alcohol and drugs weren't the problem though at this point. So this 2 years, man, and I try to be responsible still. Okay, I'm gonna clean up. I got my shit back together. Yeah, I'm facing all these charges. I got a lawyer. Okay, well, I'll go to work. Man, I had a really good job here in town. I ended up completely messing that up. I started becoming dependent on booze,
Sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
it wasn't just something I was using. Now I was abusing it. I was dependent on it.
Yeah.
You know, I'd still show up to work for everyone else, but I would do that because I'd take a couple shots and smoke some weed before everyone got there.
Yeah.
You know, and then went out through the day. Well, I ended up losing that job. Ended up getting shit canned.
Mm-hmm.
And I was to the point, man, where I would go to the liquor store. I'd buy a little pint, right? Get out in the truck. Before I even started, I'd have my seatbelt, I'd have the cap off, and it'd be gone. Well, I need more. So I'd run to another liquor store, and I'd buy a fifth. I'd go home. I'd drink half of it fast, and put on some Netflix or play some zombies or something, and I'd pass out, right?
Yeah.
I'd wake up or come to. My bottle would be laying on the bed next to me under the pillow because my dad would come in and check on me, and if he's seen a bottle laying on, so I at least had that. I was able to hide that shit real well. So I'd wake up and I'd drink that, and then I'd bounce off to the liquor store and I'd get another one, and that was a wash, rinse, repeat, a daily thing for me in the last year of this. So from 2012 to 2013, December to September, that's what I was doing. And I was still commercial fishing in the inlet. And I wouldn't drink when I was out there, but I wanted nothing more to get back home. Like, we'd go out there and I'd fish all day. I was like, okay, we need to get home, we need to get home, we need to go home. I need this at this point, I need this. So that fishing season was just a horrible mess. In my mind, it was like, oh, this is great, I'm responsible, I got a job. Now I'm getting to the point where, okay, I earned this. So I don't, because I was thinking, I'm like, I have a problem at this point in the last year. And I was like,
Well,
oh, no.
especially with every single day, wash, rinse, repeat, you're starting to notice, like,
Yeah.
maybe I do have a problem.
Yeah,
Right.
but to
Especially
solve
because
it,
you
yeah.
lost your job, which was probably one of the first times
Oh.
where work was something that was an issue.
Yeah,
Because before you were working hard and playing hard, and
Right.
now you're playing so hard that it was
Yeah.
infringing on your ability to work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no balance, man. It was all the way, just way down here is where I was, and the whole idea of justifying what I'm doing by working, just a sick delusion. I see that now, and I didn't see it then.
Right.
So it was okay. Status quo. Let's put on the rain gear, go out fishing, come back in, deliver the catch, go eat a steak and drink a fifth of vodka. Right. Trying to find that normalcy again that I had my prior 20 years, and still forget about that other shoe that wanted to fall on me, the state of Alaska. It's a pretty big shoe, So in August 2012, I had my daughter come over for the summer from Kodiak and visit me, and I remember her walking into my room, and I was passed out, and I woke up, and she has these garbage bags. She went around and found every single bottle that I had stashed, and I thought I threw them all away, for real. Like, there's no evidence against me, right? I cleaned up the crime scene, right, and I'm real thorough. And somehow she walked in with 2 black garbage bags full of Red Cap vodkas, full. And she was disappointed in me. A little girl, you know, not even a teenager yet, disappointed in her dad. That's a big word. Even, I mean, that's a big word. So she went back to Kodiak, and I was there, completely felt alone. And I was like, you know what? I'm back to that point where I don't want to be here. I don't deserve to be here. But how am I going to do it? You know, I'm a coward. I don't want to stick a gun in my mouth. You know, I don't want to feel pain. Hey, I got an idea. Booze that's cool. I know you drink enough of it and you'll pass out, but if you really drink enough of it, you'll pass out and not wake up. So that was what I did, man. And this is where the story gets kind of hard to talk about. I stole my dad's credit card, stole his keys, because at this point he had hidden everything from me, like hidden my truck from me. It was like total thumb on me, like, you're not going anywhere. And I had an opportunity, man. So I stole his credit card, stole his keys, went to the liquor store, went to someone's house that I just met. I didn't bring my cell phone. I left all that stuff at home. And I drank for 3 days. I drank vodka. I drink, chug, till the 5th was gone. I drank an entire 5th in one chug. I mean, it was several bubbles in it. You know, I had to breathe, right? But I drank an entire 5th, and I did that for 3 days. I did that for 3 days, and on the 3rd day, I woke up and I looked up, and there was a 5th sitting there about a third of the way full, and I went to grab it, and I just didn't have any motor skills, right? And I knocked it over, and I remember it spilling all over me in the bed. I'm like, son of a bitch. And I just, man, I just wanted to suck it out of the fabric. And then something amazing happened. So I'm the youngest of 9. I mentioned that earlier. I have a sister that lives in Nevada, and I hadn't seen her in like 10 years. I have a sister that lived in Kodiak. I hadn't seen her in like 2 years. Well, there's a knock on the door, and the people was like, "Hey, Lloyd, man, you got some people here." I'm like, what are you talking about? And in walks my sisters. Out of the blue, absolutely out of the blue. I thought I was dreaming. And man, I was laying in the bed, covered in spilt vodka, probably some urine, I'd imagine. Naked. And walks my 2 older sisters and pulls me out of the bed, man. Throws some clothes on me. They weren't mine. I didn't know where mine were. And hauled me out to the hospital. And I get up to the hospital. And first of all, they were completely amazed. They were astounded that I was still here. They, of course, checked my blood alcohol level. I was at
And
a
you
point.
had to have just looked like you were near death.
Roma.
I mean, you've been
Yeah.
chugging liquor for 3 days straight.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to have very little color, just thin or fat, one or the other. I don't know.
Super scrawny.
Yeah.
Yeah. My blood alcohol was 0.46, man. And that was after being passed out all night.
Yeah.
If I would have hit that bottle, if that bottle didn't spill, I would not be here right now. Or at least, I don't believe I'd be here right now. But something has a better plan for me because it saved my life. You know. So that was the very first miracle I experienced. That truly experienced, and I still ponder on that today. Pretty much every day. I don't even know how it happened. You know, my dad was very persistent. He was calling around, and somehow he got a number to somebody that said, well, I know where he might be. But to have my sisters out of the blue just coming from out of state and out of town was just, my mind was blown. So here's what happened. So then he wants a urine sample, and I couldn't even really do that. My nephew was there, he had helped me. And my urine was the same color as coffee. My kidneys were shutting down.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
well, they the emergency room. That was at the emergency room. Well, you know, the doctor even said, well, he's got enough booze in his system to get every one of us in this room right here toasted. And they were just astounded that I was, you know, talking and like functioning. And I was like, man, I got this. I've been doing this for a couple of years. You know, not to that extreme, of course, but you know, I had a pretty good tolerance. So I get sent home, and so my sisters are there, my dad's there, my stepmom's there. It's summertime. I went through detox for 9 days. Cold turkey. I was shaking.
At your dad's house?
At my dad's house.
Wow.
They wouldn't let
That's
me
dangerous.
go. Yeah, they wouldn't let me go anywhere. They didn't know, man. My dad's 83 years old. He was born in the 30s, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, why can't you just stop?
Right.
Okay. So I spent 9 days awake because I knew if I fell asleep, I would die. 9 days I stayed awake, and I didn't do that on my own power. Something kept me awake. I was hallucinating. I had vertigo. I'd be laying there watching TV, and all of a sudden the TV and the whole wall would flip up on its side, and I'd blink it out at first, but after a while blinking it out, it just stayed. My throat swelled up. I couldn't eat anything. But I knew if I didn't at least have fluid, I would die, you know.
Wow.
The rule of 3. So I had to force like Gatorade. I drink lots of, you know, like sports drinks to kind of get stuff going.
Get some, yeah.
But it was hard to swallow. You know, I smoked cigarettes, and it just had this weird, this like flavor of death. I couldn't sit still. You know, trying to pour a cup of coffee. Oh, I'd get so ticked off. I'd get the coffee cup, I'd get the coffee pot, and I'd be over the top of it trying to pour it. I'd burn the crap out of my hand. And I'd always end up with about an inch of coffee in the cup because everything else would just splash out. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy, man. Because, see, about a month and a half prior to this, I had a surgery. I had a hernia that they'd fixed. So on the 9th day, I have to go into the doctors and do a follow-up and see how the surgery, you know, things going on. And I'm sitting there, and my pulse is racing, my blood pressure is skyrocketing, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just yellow. I started turning yellow and sweating. And the doctor came in and was like, "Oh my God!" What? You don't want it. Yeah, you don't want a doctor to say anything like that. Yeah. I just looked at him. I was like, "Man, I don't feel good." And he called over here to the hospital and said, he came back and said, "Okay, they're expecting you. You need to go right now." He didn't even see me. He said, "You go to the hospital right now, or they're going to come and get you right now." So I came up to the hospital, went in the emergency room. My eyes were yellow, my skin was yellow. My body was shutting down, my liver was shutting down, my kidneys were shutting down. And I'm laying there running all kinds of tests. They don't, you know, I have like 6 people on me, man. And I've got these like hallucinations going on. Like I'm hearing people in the other room, and, you know, people that I know, and, you know, maybe they were there, maybe they weren't. I don't know, but in my mind, they were really there. I started going through these hallucinations really bad. Well, they came in and said, "Well, we know what's wrong with you. You got hepatitis B, and you have hepatitis C, and your liver's shutting down, and your kidneys are shutting down. We're going to admit you, but we can't do anything for you. There's nothing that we can do." And we talked about liver transplants, and liver transplants for me at that time was not an option. There's a criteria, and I did not meet that criteria. So they put me in a room to observe me. And man, that's when it got real for me.
I mean, they just told you like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Or sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So I'm sitting up in the room, and at this point, I can't even see. I can't write, but I wanted to write my kids letters. You know, I didn't want to die. It got real. It got real right there. You know, I was trying to write letters, and it's just scribbles, man. And I could barely see the scribbles. You know, so nurse says, "Hey, you write this for me." Well, she, I don't know what happened. I was in and out, man. I've been up for 9 days, detoxing on alcohol, you know, and then being told, well, there's nothing we can do for you for the detox. They just sent me home from the hospital. Nothing we can do for you. And then everything's shutting down. Nothing we can do for you. I bet. So I'm doing this, okay, by myself. You know, it was the most alone I ever felt. But I told myself, I was like, man, I'm not going to die. I don't want to die. I was confused. I wanted to, and then I didn't want to. That got real. When I thought of my daughter, my sons, my dad, my brothers and sisters and family and friends. And that's what I didn't want. So I'm in the hospital, and I mean, honestly, bro, to this day, I can't tell you how long I was in there. It could have been a day, it could have been a week, I don't know. I was in there the whole time, having these wild hallucinations. At one point, I jumped off the bed, ripped the IV out of my arm. I'm running naked down the corridor of the hospital, thinking that I was dead and I was a ghost of some sort. And I was just freaking out, man. I'm booking in the middle of the night. My is hanging out. There's a nurse down at the end of the deal. I'm like, what? Really? And I go up and I grab her and I was like, you real? Are you real? I'm real. I'm alive. You're. And I was so excited. And she's all, please, sir, come with me. Escorted me back into the room. And man, I kept having these hallucinations, man. There was people in my room, and they were trying to get me to go with them, and they would just fly out the window and disappear out the window. And the nurses and doctors would come in and check on me, and they would fly out the window, and as soon as they left, they'd come back in and sit there and look at me and ask me to go with them. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I got to get out of here. So I kept trying to leave the hospital, and it ended up with a couple of security guards and a needle for full authority. yeah, they put my ass out, man. But they saved my life. I ended up leaving the hospital, and I don't know when it was. I don't know, and I don't even really care at this point. Mm-hmm. But I left the hospital and went home, and I had these diseases that I had, and my beginning of my second chance, which I didn't realize it at the time. But I went home, and all my family got together, and hey man, let's check out the Serenity House. My dad called. He loves me. He cares about me. So he goes the extra 100 miles for me all the time. I love that dude. So he gets hold of the Serenity House, and I come up here, and I can't fill out the paperwork, man. I couldn't hold the pen. I could barely see the paper. And so I met Sherry up here at the Serenity House, and I was pretty much debilitated by my alcohol use. I had a hard time seeing. My family actually had to be carried on their over their shoulders, one arm over each shoulder while they walked me up in here. I was a complete wreck, and I remember like in and out. I walked into the office and I couldn't fill out the paperwork. My family helped fill out the paperwork, and I got scheduled to go into residential treatment. I had this crime of mine pending, and they were able to accept me into the house. I fit the criteria, and I'm pretty sure they made an exception for me.
Sure.
So, however, I had to wait like a couple of days I think it was like 3 days. So I went back home, and at this point I'd already gone over that dangerous hump of detoxing off of alcohol, which me and my family were completely unaware of it. We didn't know anything about that and how dangerous that is. So
Now you're feeling somewhat okay.
I'm feeling somewhat okay, to the point where
You might
like,
even have a little bit of hope, or not quite.
so hope is a belief, and the only thing that I believed in was that I was going to die. I still,
Really?
at this point, thought that
Oh yeah.
I was going to die. Even though I made it through that initial blow from the 4.6 blood alcohol level, black urine, yellow face, yellow eyes, and my color started coming back. But because of what I had done to my body, the damage, the poison that I put in, the damage that was done, I know the body heals itself over time, but it was at that point where it was so bad in such a short time that I really, man, I had the belief that it wasn't going to heal itself, honestly. And when we came into the treatment and got set up for the treatment, I didn't know what to believe about that. I didn't know what kind of hope that I had. I wanted to live, and I knew that. And because of that, in that little bit of the beginning there, I figured, well, if I make it through this, I'll be able to make my family proud of me. And now that's the beginning up until I went to the Serenity House. So I went through all of that, right? And the night before I go to the Serenity House, I'm looking through my drawer and I find 2 Xanny bars. And I felt so excited because of the prior 2 weeks of the hell that I went through. And even though I'd gotten over that hump, that excitement that I felt is almost indescribable. Well, it is indescribable, so I'm not going to try. I took them swings. I took them. And I was like, wow, man, I could sleep and be comfortable. And I had to get up real early the next morning, pack my bag, and come up here to the intake office, and they put me in residential. So I got to the house, I think it was on Wednesday. The person that does step studies, Mr. O'Brien, was there doing step study. I walked into a room full of people with these books in front of them, and just felt really like, man, maybe I should go. This is a little awkward. However, the people, the staff that was working there, man, they made me feel comfortable getting in there, but super uncomfortable opening up, man. Like they did some magic, because you couldn't approach me. I mean, physically, I couldn't really handle it. My mentally, I couldn't really comprehend things. It was probably borderline wet brain is what they call it, from drinking. I was shaking so bad. I had a hard time walking. I feel the pain in my liver, and these guys here at the Serenity House, they just did a miracle on me, man. They pushed me until I was just about to break, and right at that breaking point, I just became honest, because that's how they were breaking me. They weren't doing anything to cause harm, but they were getting me to a point in my mind where I could be open. So I made a decision, the first real decision. Okay, well, it isn't about trust. It's about just doing it. So I'm going to be open-minded, and maybe I'll live through this. and maybe I'll be able to honor that debt that I have to my family, to, my hostages, right? So I became open-minded, and all of a sudden the things that the counselors were talking to me about weren't attacking me. They were attacking my disease and forcing that honesty out of me. Holy cow. Some of those counselors are just so blunt.
Yeah.
Wow. So blunt. But I know it comes from a good place.
So this was this the first time that you were like, my drug and alcohol use is a problem, and it's been causing a lot of problems for a lot of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I started getting these. So it's about awareness, right? So the whole idea of substance abuse and the treatment for it, because you can't stop the alcoholic or the addict from their behaviors unless they're aware of why they do them. You could tell an alcoholic and an addict to stop using or stop drinking, and they'll look at you like you're an alien. But if you explain the reasons why people do this in a general way, and they, myself, are able to attach to that and recognize it for myself. Now I just did that for myself. Here's a little bit of self-esteem back because I did something. But here's the awareness, here's the knowledge that I got from that. Okay, yes, I see that. I see why I do that now. Okay, so right on. How can I change it? Oh, well, and they tell you. They give you examples. I've been sitting in groups and listening to other people and like really seeing how we all relate and how we're all connected, right? And I was able to see that, and I was able to be open-minded, to their perspectives and relate to them and not try to pick it apart or be critical or I don't fit in with these people because, man, these are my people, right? I fit in. I am one of these people. So I accepted that. Honest, open-mindedness, willingness, the three essentials, right? That's what they taught me. And they taught me that right out of the gate, man, within the first couple of days. These are the three essentials, the principles, right? So, yeah, that overwhelming feeling that my integrity, because if we're integral or if we're not, we always have that in us. If we choose to pay attention to it or not is the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So that integrity started to feel right because I was doing what I was supposed to do. Because this is my belief. The God-given energy that we possess absolutely can be taken away at any time. It's a gift. Our morals, right? That's what that energy possesses. And our values, the things that I care about, and then my beliefs, of course. When I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know that because I feel it. It's there. I feel it. And so getting into the program, getting into recovery, talking to all these people in the groups, talking to the counselors, being aware of all these things, I'm really able to start to become objective and look at what I was doing, right? And start to come up with definitions of things that I was just confusing or I overlooked or took for granted, like integrity,
What is you mentioned you now have a different definition for integrity or one that you found. What is it?
Right. Well, so I just kind of explained it a little bit. However, so my morals, which are, I believe, are God-given, right from wrong, okay? The things that I value, family, friends, I'm a Pisces, so I'm kind of a free spirit, I love to have a good time, joke around. So I value that. I value activities. I can go on and on about the values, but it's the morals, right from wrong. It's the values, things I love, and then it's my beliefs. And beliefs are so important because I believe in manifestation, right? Now I do. Okay. So all those three things working together, they're integrated into my system. So myself, my ego, my mind, and my spirit, life's energy that dwells in my soul, are connected. There is a pathway, a direct pathway that's connected. And when that direct pathway when my integrity gets challenged, that direct pathway fills it. And that's a red flag for me now. And that's what I use to this day. If something feels wrong, now I have to kind of pick it apart and see, what the consequences can be. And a consequence is just a reaction to an action. It's usually in a negative content, but there's good consequences and bad consequences. It's all about that choice. So now, this day, I believe in being a man of consequence. And so I follow that integrity. I follow that feeling that I have, and I pay very close attention to it. So when I was in the house, that started to rebuild itself. Now, pain, fear, guilt, shame, anger, and anger is just the secondary to all that, right? Well, how am I going to deal with this feeling that I don't feel? I'm going to get angry about it. Yeah. Right? Defense, reptilian, right? So getting that little bit of integrity, rebuilding it, and from a foundation of like this love that these people had for me. That's what it was built on, man. It was rebuilt with that love and that kindness and all that information that they made me aware of. And I took it and I processed it and I put in the work, man. I really put in the work because, taking for granted my life was something that seemed to come just easy, right? Rebuilding my life and living with integrity and being accountable is one of the hardest things I've ever done. But because it is, and because of the results that I have today, I know it's the right way. Nothing that's easy to me is, well, I don't want to say it's not the right way, but it's not my way. It's not my way.
It's like what the most rewarding things are behind hard work.
Indeed. Absolutely. And it's something that I'd taken for granted, in every aspect. And I was just unaware. So man, I clowned these fools for years. People, go to a meeting, whatever. I was one of those guys. I clowned them, recoveries for lames. Didn't really respect it. But I was, to be honest, man, I know it was just fear. Deep down I knew that it was just fear. So I became one of them, and like I said, going into the house and sitting down in the groups, talking to people, just super paying attention. Something told me I needed to. And I got a force that's driving me that just favors me and has given me the second chance, but I know I have to go through some things. But how do I go through those things, man? Do I crawl? Do I just lay down? Or do I trudge through them, walk through them with a purpose? Those are options. Those are my choices. So I choose to trudge, walk with a purpose. And it's hard. It's hard. And I made that decision based off of the things that was taught me. The groups and the people and the one-on-ones and all the amazing kindness and love sometimes it was tough because it wasn't always, unicorns and rainbows.
Mm-hmm.
There was some, and I got torn apart, man. I got tore down to the soul. They wanted to go in and clean out my soul. That's the realm where my spirit dwells. And they wanted to clean house, man. So it went deep. Yeah, but they did it in such an amazing way, man. I felt good about it. I felt good about it. And I knew it was the right thing because it was so hard. Yeah. My parents were so proud of me. My family. And this is, I went through there a month. I was only in there a month, man.
Mm-hmm.
I got a sponsor. I went through the steps. I went to all the meetings and, started feeling better, started. I love to cook, by the way. I got a bunch of pictures of some cool stuff on my Facebook.
Right.
But, started cooking at the house and using the barbecue when there was snow on the ground. I love that. Who does that? I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Started to feel like good about myself, get a little bit of that self-esteem, man. Like I said, that integrity started, the foundation of love that it was built on, and just every bit of awareness I added to it, and I built it and built it and built it and built it until my gut felt good. I fell in love with the idea. Yeah. And I worked with people in the house, going through the steps. I went through. I went up to the 5th step before I had to leave. But I was able to help people, through 1, 2, and 3. Other people in the house, clients that were struggling, because I seen in them me. And how would I help myself? It was my approach. How would I help myself? What makes sense? And so I would articulate that, and they would get it, and I would see their eyes get a little lighter, smile, and like a sense of self-worth. And that in turn gave me self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like a beautiful process, right? Mm-hmm. So we're going through the house, and my dad came over because they got a family day. My dad came over, my cousin came over, or came over, and we did like a process around the table, and we talked. And, I seen my dad like smiling for the first time. That I recognized that he was like truly happy, looking at me, the first time in a long time, and that was very fulfilling. Like, this is worth it. I gotta keep doing it. So I ended up going through the house, and I was supposed to stay there a month, and then they were like, well, we want to put a couple more weeks on there. I was like, whatever you say, but I don't really want to do it, but I'll do it. And then like 10 minutes later, it's like, I don't want to do it, So what was going on was my dad had a few heart attacks. Didn't know it. He just thought he had gas or something, right? He never goes to the hospital. He never goes to the doctor. He's shoved screwdrivers through his hand. He's hurt himself bad, and he just don't go to the doctor, He was born in 36. So here I am in the treatment center. My life's turning around. I'm getting all this beautiful information. I'm around all these amazing people, being able to see all these struggles and like conquering them. I felt strong. I'm a warrior for recovery, and I'm just starting to get fired up. And my dad has a heart attack, and he ends up in Anchorage, getting a triple bypass. So I get out of the house and I go home, and my dad has to go to Anchorage, and he's in the hospital, and he's there for a long time. And man, if I didn't have that recovery, just that prior month, that would have been a game ender for me, 100%. 100%. So it was really cool, man. The people at the house, they really empathetic, sympathetic, whatever. I was able to spend a lot of time at the house. Super stayed involved. Went to the house and did step studies. For like right after I got out. Like a couple days, 3 days later, I was back at the house doing step studies. Again, I believe it was an exception, you know. But man, they really saw something in me that I never saw in myself, and they kept making me aware of it, and just more, and like putting it in my face and giving me that energy, you know. And man, so it was hard, but I had that, and I really, you know, really started to see things, and just because I needed it so bad. My rock bottom was my rock bottom, man. 100%. That was the bottom for me. Well, then I get a call from my lawyer, and we have to go to court for what I had done 2.5 years prior to that. I'm all right. Well, what's the deal? Well, they can't make a deal on your charge of kidnapping because something was going on within the court system where they weren't allowed to make deals for a while. He's like, but don't worry about it. That charge is never going to stick. It's ridiculous. You know, I was like, all right. Because, I mean, I didn't believe I kidnapped. My definition is totally different than the states. Those guys are out of control, first and foremost. Yeah, they need to work on that definition. So we got to go to court. I was very convinced that they would see that in the details of the case, and, you know, that's really wasn't worried about that. I was 100% positive. So, but the other side, I mean, I didn't want to go to jail for 1 day, not 1 day. But, you know, the burglary for walking into a dwelling. Well, I did that, absolutely. You know, assault for smacking the dude around. Yeah, I did that. Kidnapping, I didn't do. And I was, with my definition, of course. So, like I said, really wasn't worried about it. My dad's in the hospital. I got to fly out now. Me and my lawyer drove up to Anchorage, stopped by the hospital, saw my dad. He had just gotten out of surgery that day. And he sat up on the bed and he looked at me. And he doesn't really remember, but he remembers you there. And, you know, he had a scar from his, where his collarbone comes together to about 3 inches above his belly button, where they opened his chest and took his heart out of his body and, you know, set it over on the side and then did a bunch of work to it. And then they put it back in. I still said they put it in upside down. You know. So I saw him, you know, the day of his surgery later that day, and, you know, he looked like that. And, you know, I had to tell him, I was like, hey, Dad, I got to go to court, man. This trial thing's real. There's going to be no deal. I need to borrow some money. What a
Sure.
So we go to court. I had to fly out west.
What'd he think? Is he like, dude, I'm in rough shape, and you want some dough? But on the other hand,
Yeah.
he's never seen you. I mean, not never, but in a long time, he has not seen you really able to function and know what you need besides drugs and or alcohol. You know,
Yeah.
I bet him looking at you and you saying, Dad, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I need to do. And here I am asking for the resources that I needed to do it. And by the way, those resources are not drugs or alcohol or means to get those drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
I bet even though, like, yeah, you said what a I bet in some respects, like, his mind was kind of like, this is a Lloyd I can deal with, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. A worthy cause?
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah. You know, I believe so. And he was honestly, he was devastated when they, he believed 100% that it was going to just, you know, it wasn't going to stick, man. And give us money, get on a plane, go out there to court, do the jury selection. And I'm looking, I was like, oh, well, I'm screwed. Not a jury of my peers. You guys would be there if it was a jury of my peers. You know what I'm saying? Not a jury of my peers. Everyone's kind of looking down at me with their glasses just right at the tip of their nose. Oh, yeah, boy. So I chose not to testify in court. I knew that I was going to get hit. I didn't know how hard, but I would like to preserve my case and remain silent. So went to trial. I had a few good hopes, but the cool thing is when I was out there, they have a church out there, and I went up to the church and I was like, man, excuse me, sir, do you have meetings here? They're like, yeah, but nobody ever comes. I'm like, really? When are you having the next meeting? Well, we're having it tonight, but there's no one here to do it. I was like, well, check it out, man. I would like to do this. So I had my basic text, the one I left the house with, and I still got it to this day. And there's a story behind that. But it has all the gifts that they gave me, and the one that was repeated in there was no less, no more. So it was balance, right? I still have that. I believe that. So I took my book, went in there, and I'm going through trial all day long, and then, I'm staying in another village, like 10, 12 miles away in a hotel. I go to the church, and we have a meeting, and, there's just like 2 or 3 of us in there. And the pastor let us do it, it was pretty cool. And then the next night, we had another meeting, and there was like 5 or 6 of us in there. And then we had these meetings, and, ended up about 6 people, every night. So I'd go to trial, I'd go home, shower, change, whatever, grab my book, and we'd do these meetings, and it turned out really cool. Well, they didn't have any literature out there, so I was like, check it out. Tomorrow is my last day of trial. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you this book of mine. And, if you guys keep doing this, I think it'd be a beautiful thing. But here's this book of mine. And I gave it to, a couple that was coming to the meeting. So I go to court the next day and guilty. Kidnapping, burg 1, assault 2. Cuff up. Right out of the courtroom. No remand date. You cuff up right there. So I took all my stuff out of my pockets, gave it to my lawyer, cuffed up. This ain't bad. I'll be all right. I was just like going through the whole grieving process right away. Just denial. Acceptance,
yeah.
And acceptance is the last part. Denial is the first part, and all the 3 or 4 steps in
Yeah,
between.
you got some anger and some bargaining and some
Yeah.
other steps in there to go through. But right now, you're full step 1.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I cuffed up, man. I went to their little jail out there with their pink walls and their bright lights and their torture chamber. I sat there for a few days, and they flew us into Anchorage, and went to the jail there in Anchorage, and from there we got shipped out to Goose Creek. Spent 7 months out there. That shoe dropped on me, found me guilty, and that was actually kind of a relief. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you're done. I mean, you'd been in fear for multiple years.
Yeah.
Right.
At least at this point, it's over.
Yeah.
At least it's decided.
Yeah,
Your
decided.
fate is not some big question mark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But still.
But still.
Yeah, I mean, right? Still,
So-
you're still in
to,
for a
yeah.
while.
To give you a perspective, so kidnapping is an unclassified felony, and the range is from 5 years, minimum 5 years. And remember, not 1 day. Here we go, 5 years. That's the least amount of time I'll do.
Mm-hmm.
To 99 years. Okay.
Mhm.
So I sat again 7 months before I got sentenced. I sat in pretrial for 7 months. Okay. Going through the whole grieving process. Bargaining was the biggest part of that. Well, I could exchange this part of my life for that part of my life. I could make up here and what I lost there. And 7 months, man. So check it out. What I had learned prior to all this, to that event happening to me, the stuff that I learned in recovery, and the coping tools that they showed me, and like the love and the caring and the obligation that I felt to that was so strong. That's what I latched onto, man, because you go in survival mode, man. I did what I had to do to survive in there. But I was gifted this opportunity to get this awareness and information. I was gifted that opportunity, and it was in my face. And like, what do I do? Oh, yes, this is what I do. man, and I stuck to recovery. I
I
latched
think that's a
onto
pretty
it.
textbook, example of, what a lot of recovery programs, or just like what does recovery look like and what are its goals. I think that's a major component of it, right? I mean, I think this is a good example of where, because in a lot of situations, people don't necessarily get cleaned up with no real baggage left to deal with, right? A lot of people that are getting cleaned up have some future court dates or some future unresolved outstanding child support bills or some other really large, tangible, must be dealt with kind of circumstances.
Yeah,
And they're going to be, as I think this is quite the example, they're going to be extremely challenging.
yeah,
And that is when your tools of recovery are going to be most necessary. I think this is a good example of, because you had a lot of, right, if a disease of addiction in a lot of ways is cunning and baffling, and it will take away and it will deceive, what better circumstances for that disease to get to work when one's feeling a little bit hopeless in jail for 7 months, thinking, who knows what's going to happen, And it's going to take some real skills for that disease not to win out. And it's just, I guess all that to say, it's really cool to hear a real life example of those tools being used in the face of some really difficult circumstances.
yeah, yeah. Necessity, man, mother of invention, right? I had to reinvent myself, and I did that with, like you said, the tools. Putting that stuff into action, man. Words beget words, actions beget actions, right?
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing about that, man. Like, I didn't know it, man. I did not know it. I still didn't know it at that point, but I felt it. And because that connection had started to rebuild itself, man, the message started to get through to me. The message of recovery and the belief of hope and faith, right? I have faith in this. It's a very, very strong belief. It's and then it happens, and it just builds on that. And so I clung on to all the tools that I learned, like the superficial tools, give yourself a timeout, think about this or that. But the spiritual tools, man, I really integrated those, man. I internalized that message, and I prayed on it, meditated on it. I'm not a religious guy. I'm a very spiritual person, right? And I respect all religions because it's a belief that somebody else's belief, and who am I to disrespect that? It's ridiculous to me, and that's what I believe. So the spiritual connection that I found and those tools were just so crucial to my well-being. So I used those, man. And man, I'm gonna be all right. I got 7 months. I didn't know it was 7 months. It's supposed to be like within 6 months, but so it could have been any time. Oh, am I going to court tomorrow? I'm getting rolled up. I'm gonna what's going on? Call my lawyer. Quit calling me too much. Never said that. He never said that, but that's how it felt, right? So bam! All of a sudden, one night I'm sitting there and roll up. All right, cool. So I'm all excited. I get to go outside, away from this place, So I roll up my stuff, and they take me into Anchorage and jump on a plane and fly back out west, go to court. I'm in court. I get my pre-sentence report, and the district attorney is recommending they give me about 90 years. So, interesting.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, man. My story of my crime is brutal. My recollection of it is not so brutal, but when it's put down on paper and have a perspective of somebody that was in fear for their life, it gets big. And not my recollection of it. However, right in the middle of that, the court decided, and because of the support that I had and the things that I had gone through for recovery to help myself, but the support that I had, the letters I got, because you could have letters and people that support you and what they think of you and character reference and stuff like that from anybody, during court when you're sentenced and all that, and parole too as well. But at that point I was 38 years old, and 38-year-old doing this, well, they're not really rehabilitatable in the eyes of the courts. But I was, because what I had gone through in recovery and what I latched onto, and the people that saw that wrote letters for me. So I got 20 years when I got sentenced. And when he said 20 years, I was like, that's better than 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, but I'm suspending 11 of those years to hold you accountable. If you mess up one time, if I see you in this courtroom one time, you're getting all of those 11 years. Okay, so 11 years, so that's 9 years. So in 9 years, you do 6 years. Yay, winning.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deal for a kidnapping charge.
Especially when that original number says 90.
Yeah, 99.
99,
Your whole life?
yeah.
And, I got a lot of homeboys up there that don't have a release date.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 years, 6 counters, bet I could do that. But I'm going to get out early. Watch this. I'm not doing 6 years. And so that was my goal, man. My goal was to get out early and be clean and healthy and cure my liver disease, right? And at this point, I'd been checked twice, and yeah, I'd had B and Hep C. So that was my plan. I was going to get healthy and, start working the step 12. I started to kind of develop a relationship with people in the other dudes that were in prison that were struggling. I started to develop kind of a real honest relationship with them, and share a little bit of my story and what I've been going through, and the amazing stuff that happened to me when I was in treatment, and when I was in the treatment house, in the Serenity House. I had to justify me being there by doing something positive. I couldn't just
make some meaning out of all this.
Yeah, man, I couldn't just sit there, because here's the deal, dog, for real. All you have to do is every Wednesday you have to get up in the morning, make sure your cell is clean because they do an inspection. You have to lock down at 6 in the morning. You have to lock down at 10. You have to lock down at, I believe it was 4, 5 o'clock at 6 at shift change, and 10 o'clock at night. That's all you have to do.
You have to do...
They do counts, right?
Like 5 or 6 different times a day?
Or 8 times a day they do counts.
Wow.
24-hour period, they have to do X amount of counts.
That's
all
a
you
lot.
have. That's all you have to do, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have to do.
Right. You gotta swing in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For here and there.
Yeah. I was like, man, I can't do that, man. I gotta do something that warrants me being taken away from my family. I might as well been on the moon up there, man. I'm not gonna ask my 80-year-old dad that just had his heart ripped out and put in upside down. I'm not gonna have him drive up there, man, and see me. And that's not me being selfish because I want to see me in prison. No, that's me honestly not wanting him to do that drive, man. It's a long drive, and the rest of my family's out of state and in Kodiak. And so, man, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this 6 years. I'm going to do this 6 years. I'm not going to see my family. I'm not going to, I'm not going to, try to avoid it. But, okay, I got to make this right. So I started getting into the substance abuse program that they had up there. I filled out a mentor application for SAT, right? That's what they were doing, was all SAT at the time. Never had taken because normally you would take their program, and then after the program, you could, be a mentor, right? Well, I just filled out the mentor paperwork, and man, they hired me right away. So I jumped over there, got in the LSAT classes, and I'm sitting there with a bunch of thugs. My first time, and I was like, hey man, check it out. I got to tell you who I am. If I'm going to sit in this room and listen to who you are, I need you to trust me. So I told him, man, I was tearing up. I told him the story, man. I told him what I'm telling you here today. Mm-hmm. And, man, it was an amazing feeling. All these, you know, heavies in there looking at me like, man, I respect you. And you can feel it because it's all about, you know, respect. We'll get into that later, but so the program, man, I got into the program. I was mentoring. People were looking at me, man. I was getting honor. I was restoring my honor, man. I had these obligations, and I was fulfilling these obligations, and in turn, my honor was being restored. And honor is what other people think of me. Integrity is what I think of myself, right? So that honor, man, I became somebody in there, man, and not just somebody that's known for, you know. Well, be for real, man. It's a tough place, you know. I mean, there's facade after facade after facade of tough guy, tough guy, tough guy, tough guy. Man, the hardest dude on the yard is the guy that wants to get out of there and take care of their family. That's my definition of hard. People are kind of unaware of that, you know, and maybe this will make them aware. So vulnerable, man. I'm just putting this out there. That's the hardest man on the yard. And, man, I became somebody. I got a lot of respect. The staff up there, you know, the inmates up there. You know, there's an occasional jerk. And I ain't going to lie, man. I had to do some battling. Absolutely, you know. Been to the hole a few times. You know, got a couple scars. Gave a couple scars, you know. I went through the experience, all the experience, man. And I handled that with the respect it demands in prison. And so, yeah, I became a very important part of a lot of people's lives up there. And most importantly, I became a very important part of my own life. I started participating in my life. You know, going through the LSAT program up there. That's a beautiful program. And I learned quite a bit with the people in there. And everything's recorded, everything's on video up there, so there's the confidentiality doesn't work for, you know, incarceration. But to be able to see people like, you know, whatever, and like open up, and not everyone did that, but that kept that fire burning inside me. Well, that LSAT program went away, and I stayed in there, and counselor after counselor were getting walked off the yard for being inappropriate, because it's not like counseling on the street where you could have like an intimate conversation with this counselor. It's very sterile, very clinical, and like the stuff that really helps and soothes the soul, the stuff that really like gets into you and brings all that anxiety out, it's not allowed. And that's just the dynamic of it, right? And I respect it because that's just the way that has to be. So between inmate and inmate, of course it's allowed, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, I need that for me. So I know this dude needs it for him. So then I started talking to people, and and you know, just chopping it up, and man, people are telling me these things, and it's helping me because I'm like, okay, man, I'm gaining more perspective. I'm starting to see like a panoramic of the picture, you know, the big picture, the proverbial picture, you know, look at the big picture, stay inside the frame, you know. And man, these guys are doing, you know, they're doing cool stuff. I felt really good about it, right? And then the IOPSAT program came in there, right, with Aquila, and that was there for just a short time, and they ended up losing the contract. And so I was a mentor there that was paid. I volunteered for like a year, over a year, you know, 6 hours, 5 days a week, right? And Aquila came in, and like getting $1 an hour is big, because like 40 cents an hour, 35 cents an hour is what they pay people. So I was getting $1 an hour, man. I was living large. You know, I was doing good, man. And then the contract failed, and Keela bounced out of there, and there was nothing. There was one counselor that didn't accept that. She stayed there, and she stayed there for a year, and she went from being hired with Keela to being a work employee for the state, for DOC, and she did those programs, man, and I helped her out as much as I could, man. But at this point of the game, this is like 2.5, 3 years later, okay, after I got in there, right? And I'm being a mentor the whole time, and I'm doing good. I'm on fire, man. I wrote a book. I got a recovery book, actually. It's Warriors Within. It's pretty cool. I'm working on that still right now. However, man, I was super on fire, and then I ended up trying to get out, getting on EM, because you get on an ankle monitor. You know, you try to get out early, go on furlough, stuff like that, and I wasn't getting no action. And you know, at this point, like I've had like 2 visits from my family in like 3.5, 4 years or whatever, and so I was kind of feeling down. The recovery wasn't really working anymore. You know, I put my book down, and next thing I know, I get hit on my request for EM, you know, and then I get hit on furlough, and I got in a really bad place. And there's a lot of, I ain't gonna lie, man, there's a lot of dope up there. Probably more up there than down here on the street, for real.
Yeah.
That's the hustle, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hustle. And man, those cravings started kicking in. Those thoughts came in, and I wasn't setting them aside, man. There was something that just, fuck, man, I'm gonna be here for the rest of my life. I'm gonna do all those 20 years. I know it, you know. And that negative, so much negativity in that place, man. And I fought it off, and I fought it off, and I fought it off, and it got to the point where, oh, they're not gonna let me out of here. Why bother? You know, everyone's gonna be dead by the time I get out. You know, I started like manifesting these negative results, and you know, I'm like, I thought about it, and then it happened. It was just, I thought about it, and then it happened. It was negative, you know. They're not gonna let me out. Well, they didn't let me out. So I really wanted to get high, man. And there's some Suboxone, that little beautiful orange fish food, we call it. Here, man, try this. This will help. And I tried it, and I felt just like I did heroin. You know, I got that feeling. I got high off it, and all 100% of that guilt and shame and fear and anger and anxiety just hit me like a ton, man. Like I really can't even explain it. And man, I went dark. But again, man, there was just something that pulled it out of me, man. I was blessed with an opportunity to enter a sober living mod that they had there, which is like, you know, one of the first ones. It's a pretty new thing. PO3 up there, she was in charge of putting that mod together. The superintendent, the administration, they were super supportive of it. So I moved into the sober living community. And, you know, everyone in there is doing this program or has a job. You know, there's some lifers in there, too, that are, you know, kind of help mentor things along. And then there's inmate council. And every Wednesday we'd hold like a town hall meeting with the mod. And there's about 90 people in there, right? So I was asked to be one of those. So I was one of the 5 council members. And my get down in there was, you know, I did a lot of like resources. I collected resources. I had people out here that would send resources to me, and then I would copy them. They let me use the copy machine. It was amazing. And I'm like, yay! What is this thing? How does it work? Started pushing buttons and stuff, and weird stuff happening. You know, so I had trust. These guys trusted me to do this stuff, and I was like, wow, because we don't get to do nothing up there, man. Mm-hmm. They trusted me because I earned it because I put in this effort, you know, and I messed up, but man, they see that, and okay, they forgive me, so I can forgive myself. See, I would have never saw that before. So that was one of the things that was, instilled in me by this recovery thing. I can forgive myself. It's okay. And just know it's there and move forward, right? So all that stuff started coming back, started giving all these resources and helping people out. And then, I started getting back into the book again and, became a mentor for the mod, which my door was always open, and I always had, 2-3 guys come over and be talking to me, and so, man, I started going through the steps, and I had a friend that was like, hey, let's do the step studies over there, and I was like, nah, I'm no good on that. I got too much mentoring in the mod to do. And, well, he ended up getting out, so I was like, well, I'm not going to let that candle go out. I'm going to torch it. So, man, we started having meetings over there. I went and talked to P.O. Angle, and I was like, listen, I really want to do this. I've learned a thing or two, and I'd love to share it. And she's like, okay, absolutely, we'll put you on a schedule. So put us on the schedule, man. We had fired up these NA meetings. There was recovery meetings, and had a large turnout. We had one meeting, there was 47 people in there. Our average and it's kind of seasonal because in the wintertime everyone kind of just hibernates, right? But, we had an average of 28 people for, like first 3 months, then kind of it whittled itself down to, in the, 20 was about our average. We did that for like 8 months, man. And I was like, well, these meetings are cool. I love these meetings. These meetings are cool. And we had a pretty strict format. And there was no crosstalk, disrespect. It was very cool. And went out in the room, everybody either chose to speak or not. They didn't. They just said their name, and then we bounced to somebody else. So some of these meetings went on for like 2.5 hours. Yeah, so a lot of people. But then we did step studies too, man. I started step studies, started working through the steps, and there was upwards around like 24, 26 people in the step studies. And it was pretty amazing, and it was very systematic. 1 step per week. We get to step 4, and we break that into 4 parts. Step, 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 and then complete step 4 in a month. And I was able to do that a little over 2.5 times before they kicked me out of prison. I got booted out of prison.
So do you think your involvement in this mentoring and really helping these people out, did that really get you out of that dark place? Because you mentioned you got all that negativity, but then it sounds like the more you became involved in helping these other people, the more it kind of helped yourself. Was that kind of how it went, or how'd you get out of that negative mindset?
Well, that was exactly how it went, man. That was exactly how it went. When I got out of the hole from my behavior, and got put in a mod, there was a lot of people that I let down up there. And they made me very aware of it. Disappointment is a tough thing to face. The first time I really felt it was with my daughter. She was 13. But when these guys were like, hey, man, what the are you doing? I woke up, I snapped out of that. Because I was helping these people, and then I wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
And when I help someone and I feel it, I see it, it's there, it's real, man, my spirit gets just happy. It gets happy. It's unbelievable. It's an amazing feeling, and I miss that, man. And, that's when I was like, man, I deserve that all the time. So this is what I'm going to do. So I didn't have to take the program. Again, I seriously, like I said, all you got to do is just exist there. You sit on the couch, watch TV. Sit in the chairs, watch TV. That's, whatever. But, I'm getting back in the program. So I took the program, and I was resentful. I was just looking at everybody in the group, because I was a mentor in the program, and now I'm a student. And it don't matter what I do, I'm not getting out of prison early. I said, no, forget it. All right, I understand.
So it sounds like you were kind of feeling hopeless, that you weren't going to get out of prison early, but things were looking up for the future.
Yeah. What had happened was I was focusing so much on that getting out of prison with like a really an unreasonable expectation, you know. So I just started focusing back on myself and getting back in that place where I was happy, not necessarily comfortable, but I was happy with my life and the things that I've learned and the self-worth that I had found. And I started focusing on that, and I applied the information in the program that they had up there to my life, and then I applied that to the reality that I was in. And it was an amazing transformation for me to see, because I know it happened before and I was able to get it back and kind of get readjusted. So I went off course is what happened at that point when I realized that that course changed for me, and it went back to where what I was doing was right, and I was feeling good every time I did it. Even though it was hard and I didn't want to do it, I still trudged forward, and you know that reality felt great. So that's where I wanted to be, and it was in a positive direction. So, you know, like I said, the administration there, the staff, you know, they saw that and respected it. The inmates there, you know, all my dudes there, you know, they saw that, they respected it, and you know, so that added to my self-esteem, and I started, all right, man, okay, I'm not getting out of prison early. That's absolutely fine. But every minute I spend in here, I'm going to be giving back. I'm going to be service. Because if I don't, I'm going to lose that feeling of self-worth. Right? I'm going to help some people. Attainable goal. Realistic and reasonable. I'm going to put this message out. And I'm going to be vulnerable. And I'm okay with that. And if someone picks it up, that's great. To help one person in the world doesn't make much of a difference, but that one person makes a world of difference. And that's it. It's so simple. So that's what I did, man. My outlook was like this. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to give my pound of flesh. I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to be transparent. And the people that attach to that are the people I'm going to be around, people I'm going to associate with, because they're like-minded. And I was so surprised with how many people actually attached to that. You know, I've mentored people that are now running their own recovery groups out of prison, people that were shooting dope for 20 years. Recovery groups are open, they're doing it, man. And that's an amazing feeling when they call and say, hey man, check it out, I want to thank you. You know, I'm a sponsor, man. I have sponsees. You know, I have results for positive action, and that is so powerful, and that drives me. It drives me, and I have a very clear, for the first time in my life, I have a very clear vision of my future, where I am, who I'm going to be with, and what I'm going to be doing. I see it. I mean, I visualize it for the first time in my life. I'm a late bloomer, I guess. Slow learner. But I got it, man. I mean, I got that vision. And that's what I'm working towards. And it's not, I'm flexible. You know, it's not like, that's got to be it. No, I see it, and that's what I'm striving for. And it involves being of service. It involves helping others, you know. It involves letting people get to know me so I can get to know them. And this is an amazing thing what you guys are doing, because this is how that works. And you know, it's really cool to, you know, to meet you guys and be able to do something like this, because spreading awareness is the number one thing. And I wish back then someone would have done it for me. But you know,
if you could go back and even talk to yourself, what do you think you'd say?
Man, if I could, super hypothetically speaking, because I got a really strong belief about going back and changing the future.
Yeah.
But super like a cape on it, super
Yeah.
hypothetical. If I can go back and talk to myself, I would let myself know that I'm worth it, that I could forgive myself, I can move forward. And I would tell myself that the things that you have done yesterday doesn't need to define you for tomorrow. There is a future. What you do right now in the moment is a choice, and that choice will determine that, will give you that consequence, either right or wrong, good or ill. But you have choices. Respect those choices. Follow your gut, follow your instinct, listen to that. That's what I would tell myself. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have this belief, where I am today, right now, as opposed to where I was, I would never even dream of going back and changing anything.
Yeah.
Because my life is so beautiful now. So I mentioned that when I got sick, went to the hospital, diagnosed with hepatitis B and hepatitis C. Usually within the first month, your body can fight it off and then you won't have it anymore. Let's say about a month, right? 3 years later, I go and I get checked. I got it. I still got it. I'm in prison. Yep, hep B and hep C. All right, cool. Well, part of the miracles that happened in my life, and I'm not really sure if I don't really know about, once I got diagnosed with it, I was like, well, I got it. I don't want to know anything about it. Because I just, who needs to know about it? I got it. Whatever. That's all I need to know. But check it out, man. I come out here and I get my annual, and first in 5 years, other than the blood test I got up there that said I had it. Man, when I was up there every day, I told myself I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to be healthy. So I worked out. I spent 6 days a week in the gym, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. I'd go to the gym, work out, best physical shape of my life. 54-inch chest, 33-inch waist, doing good. And I'm going to eat as healthy as I could. There's a lot of garbage up there, but I'm going to do my best. And I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this disease, man. I'm going to get rid of it, hepatitis. And so I come back here, man. I get my test results back a couple weeks ago. I am 100% clear of these diseases.
Wow.
My blood pressure is just banging, heart racing, heart rate banging, cholesterol banging, no hepatitis B, right? No hepatitis C, testosterone level normal, bacteria. Every single test I had them run, man, and they ran it, and I'm good.
Wow.
Manifestation, bro. Positive energy, positive thoughts, belief, faith, focus. Yeah. Those are the things that I learned when I went to treatment, things I paid attention to. And it was probably there my entire life. I just took them for granted and didn't see it, because I was caught up in that whole self-obsession. And, yeah, man. So doing all those things, leading those groups up there and seeing the changes in people and helping people, recharging my power, recharging my energy, staying involved is like the number one thing that I know that I must do, because it's a source of energy for me, right? So, having that opportunity and having, those, I'm going to say, amazing staff members up there at Goose, P.O. Engel and the superintendent, and having that kind of support in that environment, just knowing that support is offered without anything further than that is an amazing thing, right? If it goes no further than just the offer, it's a beautiful thing. But these guys up there, man, they latched onto it, and it's a big deal. And you got the outside guys that come in from NA and outside guys from AA. They come in and do their, 1 meeting a week, and everyone's involved in that. So it's still on fire up there. I get reports back. It's still on fire up there, and, that feels really good. So I went to the full board. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking of today, what is life like today? You know.
Wow. So, speaking of today, man, I have the most beautiful relationships. Like it's amazing, man. My dad's 83. My mom, my stepmom, she's 80. She's got a little bit of, dementia going on and stuff. And she, my daughter's here with me. One of my sons is here in town. I got an amazing girlfriend. I've been in love with her for years. And I'm just finally able to tell her, Could you imagine being in love with someone for like 6 years and not telling them? And then all of a sudden one day being able to do it? That's a miracle right there, bro. My daughter, who I thought about every day and who I let down, and the one that was disappointed in me, is now so proud of me. It's amazing. She glows. My dad, has a hard time walking, but he floats around the house, plays old country music on the radio while we cook breakfast and laugh, and my stepmom and I have great conversations. I sneak her cookies as many times a day as I can. I do a lot of cooking. I love to cook and cleaning and organizing and just, and it's because I love to do it. I love doing that. I love it. I love the results from it. I go to groups and I go to meetings, and probably ought to go to more meetings. I'm healthy. Let's talk about a second chance, bro. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that, man. They boot me out of prison. They're like, you know what? All right. Parole board said, all right, you got a good plan. Are you going to do it? Yes, I'm going to do it. Man, they all had smiles on their face when they told me to get out of there. Yeah, they all had smiles on their face. I noticed that. They probably didn't realize it, but I noticed. All right, cool. So the second chance, man, they let me out early. And I remember, at the beginning of the story, I'm like, I'm not doing 6 years. So they let me out a year early. Super probational parole, though. But, that's another miracle. I got a probation officer there that's supportive, not the enemy. I don't view him as enemy. Support, right? That's cool. But I got my health back. I got my freedom back. I got myself back. I got my family back. My relationships are all healing up. People are proud of me. I'm proud of myself, man. The support that I have in the community, the support from the Serenity House. Even you guys, I see beauty and love all the time. I see fear, I see anxiety all the time, in myself and in others. But I know how to deal with that. I know how to deal with love. I know how to deal with fear. And I deal with it by talking, by reaching out or answering a call. I don't deal with it by sticking a needle in my arm anymore, or drinking a fifth of vodka. That has changed for me. And, they talk about that. We'll be lifted. Yeah, man. A thought is a thought, and occasionally a thought will pop in. But it's just that, and I don't have to act on it, man, because I'm a man of consequence. That's where I want to be. That's where I want to stay, man, that Neil Mammalian mind where, I'm participating in my life, and that's where I'm at right now. And I'm striving to it, man. I got a barrier crime, but I want to work with people, and I have faith that, all that's going to come through in one way or another. I'm going to be of service, and I'm going to participate in my own life, and, I got a full second chance. Relationships, health, freedom of choice, and I'm accountable for that, and I realize that. Man, I went through it. Man, I went through it. But I came out, maybe not on top, but there's a top I'm striving for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a chance to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, man.
And it seems like you have both the opportunity as well as the fact that you're taking advantage of that opportunity with a good amount of energy. It seems like you're trying to take some other people with you as well. You know, it seems like you're giving back. You're mindful of what others who are, you know, down and out, you know, need, and part of that is, you know, I think unique. You know, that if you weren't able to kind of have some of the insight that you gathered, you wouldn't be able to, you know, do some of the, I guess, profound work that you're doing. You know, I think that's important to consider.
Yeah. You know, and being able to do it with confidence. Now, there's arrogance and there's confidence, right? Confidence is built upon legitimate, real experience, and it's that's the walking the walk part of it, right? Arrogance comes from building upon talking about it and talking the talk, and I've experienced both. Because believe me, when I was in my darkest, I was talking the talk, and I was arrogant, and applying all that and doing the work for real, and built on those experiences. I'm confident in myself and my abilities. And, I'm focused and still working on No Less, No More, and that was written several times in my book, by the way, as I mentioned earlier, when I left the recovery house. But man, I'm right there. I'm fluctuating this way, and that's.
And I bet that's hard for you. I mean, you know, we've just been here for a little while, but I can tell, like, you're probably, and I mean this in a nice way, because it really can be, I think, of great success. But you are a man of extremes. I mean, when you're in, you're in, right?
Right.
I mean, when you're
Roll
going
up
to do
the sleeves,
something,
yeah.
you're all in. I mean, I get
Yeah.
that. It's been like not that long. I don't know about you, Coburn, but like I get that like impression pretty quickly. Like when you're in, you're in. And so I bet that's hard, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you got to find the balance of being all in, but also kind of no more, no less, and
Yeah.
that's tough, right?
Yeah, you know, that is absolutely something I struggle with, because when I'm all in, you know, and then there's the burnout, man. Everybody knows what the burnout is on something, and you know, I start to get to that point, and that's like when, you know, overwhelming feelings come in, you know, and so I get right up there and I start to get singed by it, you know, because it's hot,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could back up. Before, I would let that
Staying and keeping going, yeah.
the overwhelming part would
It's like
just
fried.
right. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, right?
Mm.
So as not to be overwhelmed, and that's how I deal with life on life's terms. Is I take the situation, and you know, I can look at it. Okay, well, this is what I need to do to have a positive consequence. Couldn't do that before. Didn't even really care. Didn't know about it, really. Wasn't aware. Now I know. It's a bell. I can't unring it, right?
Right.
So,
I like that.
yeah. So, yeah, you know, that extreme thing, it's, I have to find quiet time for myself, man. I learned how to play the guitar. I taught myself. You know, that's a quiet time. I like to, you know, write down my thoughts, and maybe not necessarily journaling, but, you know, just maybe it is journaling. You know, I like that, you know, just like meditation type thing. I do several things for myself in self-time, and that helps with the balance. Man, I respect myself. I love to work out, man. I go to the gym a lot and just put my headphones in. I don't even listen to the music. I just put headphones in, I got specific music, but I don't listen to the words, man. I work out, you know, do my routines, and have that self time to kind of give me that balance. You know, mind, body, and spirit is what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and go to meetings and talk to people and talk to my sponsees and talk to my girl, talk to my kids, talk to my dad. I love you is probably said countless times every day. And my stepmom, I'm her favorite person. Every time I see her, she just lights up and compliments me, and and then we start talking about something, and then it just quickly goes. So it's something else, but those moments are beautiful, man, and that's what I cherish. That's what keeps me in the balance, man, and I dig it.
So I think some of the really cool things that we've heard today have been one, that you can forgive yourself. That was, I think, a pretty big lesson.
Yeah.
As well as I liked what you said about eating an elephant one bite at a time. I think I want to thank you for sharing really what has been a story of a lot of difficulty at times, also some great triumph as well. I think you were able to take really a lot of very difficult situations and get to a place now where it sounds like, you describe your life today, and it's, a lot of fulfilling relationships, fulfilling service. You've impacted a lot of people in positive ways. I'm hoping that people that are able to hear this are, I think one interesting part of this was that you got clean, and then you pretty much, your next 6 years were locked down,
Yeah.
And for the most part, you made some meaning out of that. You found a way to be productive and make that not wasted. Where really, I think some people hear years of incarceration and they think that might have been, wow, that's a lot of years that just went down the drain. And really, it sounds like you found a way for those to be of some kind of meaning. So, do you have maybe any last kind of advice, or just maybe some hope or some messages for people out there listening?
Well, I would just like to end with this. So, my problem, our problem, takes our very being, our integrity, takes our self-esteem, and self-esteem is respect, and you can't respect anyone else if you don't respect yourself first and foremost. So respect is a big word, but this disease that we use to cope with our problems, our core issues, has something that comes with it, and that thing that comes with it destroys our self-esteem and drives us further and further and deeper into despair, into self-loathing, unforgivable territory. How can we forgive ourselves now? We're too deep in it, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, man, I'm an example of that's BS. Mm-hmm. Because check it out. We restore that self-esteem. It's called honor. And that's what others think of us, is our right? We restore that by meeting obligations. And an obligation could be something as simple, and I'm talking about obligations to ourselves before others. Self, children, others, right? A small obligation, like I'm getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to brush my teeth. Now there's an obligation. I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, I brush my teeth. I feel better about myself because I did what I said I was going to do. Guess what? I have a little bit more self-esteem, and you do that on a daily basis, and to where, yeah, I'm going to go speak in front of 1,000 people and tell them my story. Here's an obligation. I just fulfilled that. It could be as big or as little as you want. The point is, you fulfill that obligation, you regain your honor, what others think of you. Your self-esteem rises, and you get to a point where you're at your higher self, because that self-esteem is part of a basic need, right? Mm-hmm. So make a small obligation and fulfill it, and do that daily. And just watch and see where those obligations go and those fulfillment, how it brings back that self-esteem, and now you have respect for yourself and you can give it to others. Mm-hmm. And that's how respect works. Mm-hmm. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Brush your teeth.
All right, guys, you heard it. Brush your teeth. But no, seriously, yeah, that makes sense. You know, meeting, developing some way to, you know, really take yourself seriously and your life seriously. I think, you know, is a lot about what that sounds like. If you are not able to do so, you lose a lot of traction. So thank you so much. Again, this is Eric. Aaron had to leave a little bit early, but Eric and Coburn, and to hear Lloyd's really story of just triumph and really making meaning out of what could have been, you know, a lot of I guess, you know, really some loss, but he was able to, you know, turn that into benefit for himself and for a lot of other people around him. And so thank you so much. And this is You and I for the Kenai.